Well, Tom, that was a great chat.
That was cracker. It
It's good to have you there with me, mate. Our head of partnerships here at CoPosit.
Good to be back.
Yeah, good. I hope you listen to this one.
Yeah, this will be the second one I listen to.
second one you listen
Second
to.
time I'm on. So,
But we had some heavies of the industry. This one was all about building confidence and trust in off the plan, which I think is important. iCIRT ratings, iCIRT values. A lot of our potential co-posit buyers may have heard of this, and if they haven't, they need to hear about it and they need to listen to this one. So we had Brad Walters from Equifax, who have created and roll out the iCIRT ratings as well, and also Billbergia's development director.
Oh yeah, development director.
Rick Graf, who just a real stalwart of the industry, and he was there from day one before iCIRT was a thing, really trying to figure out what it should be and for the industry.
Which we didn't even know, to be honest. Like that, I don't think we could have gotten a better lineup, because you have Rick, who from the very beginning was there to carve out and create this rating, and then you've got the driving force behind it. So I learned a lot. I think it's such an important thing for industry. It's massive in New South Wales, excitingly. And what we'll learn about is how they're growing nationally
and
as
internationally.
well. And internationally.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Fantastic episode. I'm glad you were with me, Tom. I'm Michael Carboni. My friends call me Carbs. And welcome back to Property Now. Rick, were Billbergia one of the first to adopt?
Yeah, before iCIRT, we were in the room trying to shape the policies that would give us a stronger industry. When the couple of celebrated catastrophes occurred through the fault of defective developers and defective builders, although a very small minority of the industry, it sent shockwaves through, because it disclosed for the first time publicly that there was a small rump of the industry that was giving the rest of us a bad name.
Yeah.
And as a family-owned developer builder of 4 decades, we immediately sprang into action when David Chandler started saying, we've got to do something better than this. And he invited me from Billbergia and 3 others from Mirvac and Meriton and Helm as the gang of 4, the trustworthy developers who would help him work to shape what has become iCIRT and the whole building commission.
The gang's a good way to describe it, because Dave Chandler is a heavy guy. Like, he was almost like, I'm not in a negative way, like a mob boss in his seriousness, very proactive. No, but do you know what I mean? I don't mean.
Yeah, look, he was not afraid to.
He wasn't afraid. Yeah.
And he needed to be in some cases, because some of the bad actors who were in the industry, who I'm pleased to say aren't anymore, took very unkindly to him calling them out.
Yep.
And so threats were made.
He must have had a security detail with him.
Well, the police tried to give him a security detail, but he wouldn't have it. And look, he's been a stalwart of the industry for 5 decades.
Yep.
And he was originally on the new and permanent Parliament House project in Canberra, leading up to opening in 1988. So if you trace him back, he was the tough guy who got that through. Without a defect, as they say.
I feel like we could create like an 8-part podcast series about what he's done. I think maybe it's something we'll talk about later on. That would be pretty cool. Tom, I know for you, very interesting as a head of partnerships here, you're dealing with a lot of developers, builders as well. So
yeah, it's interesting, because we're in CoPosit, and certainly myself, we're in quite a unique role where we have exposure to most of the stakeholders within the cycle. So from the developer or developer builder, such as Billbergia, who are obviously our key client, even the financiers as well, who are obviously funding the project. We work very closely with them, because I guess you'd say the uniqueness of a CoPosit sale. I remember back in 21, probably when we were first starting out and going to market, it was the talk of the town. And what was really interesting was you did kind of have 2 subsets where there would be the real moan and groan, and not openness to what David Chandler was doing, but even the iCIRT in general. Then you had the other subset who still moaned and groaned, because don't get me wrong, process is we can all have a whinge about that, but understood the necessity of it. I remember there was one developer I was talking to said it's a necessary surgery for a horrible accident, and obviously talking about those previous projects that were in the news. And it's funny, those ones who understood the necessity of it are the ones who right now, 4 or 5 years later, are still active in market, because I think they knew that there needed to be some awareness for buyers, or something they could look towards. I was actually going to ask you, Rick. So, what were Billbergia doing prior to iCIRT? Was there any way you would really raise awareness in terms of the construction quality of Billbergia's projects, other than obviously having a complete works of, say in Rhodes Bay, that kind of heritage of projects they can already look, see, feel and touch?
I guess having been around for 4 decades in the same city and working in the same precincts, we've always relied on our past customers to be our future and to bring our future customers. And we haven't been aggressive marketers at all. We've tried to build entire communities, not just an individual building and move on to the next precinct, but rather we try to, our tagline has been creating communities. And as a family-owned company, that's what we passionately believe in. So, for example, at Rhodes, we've done 16 buildings now, but we've also done the urban infrastructure and social infrastructure that's necessary to make that a complete community. So we've always relied on our last building to be our best reference for our next building, rather than moving on to another city or another suburb and being a hit-and-run merchant. That's not us. We're absolutely committed to quality and to letting that be its own reward. But we were always annoyed at the small rump of the industry that tended to give developers or builders a bad name. And so when David Chandler started his activities and working with Equifax to produce iCIRT, we jumped into that because it was a way of driving the bad actors out of the industry. And with David Chandler bringing in his works rectification orders and refusing to give occupation certificates, it really stopped them in their tracks because their funders started to disappear, although some of them had spurious sources of funds. But I'm glad to say that the worst of that is over, and we now have a much more reliable and rewarding industry for the communities that we're trying to serve.
Definitely, we need people to understand that as well, more and more. You mentioned something that I want to highlight for any prospective buyers out there. If you're buying a project from a builder developer, go and inspect previous projects, because the quality often gets better with each project, I would say. With a lot of the developers that I've spoken to, they're always trying to get better and better and better. So if the last one was a good one, the next one's going to be even better than that. And that's one thing you should do when you're doing your DD or when you're looking to buy off the plan. We spoke about those bad eggs. You mentioned it a couple of times now, Rick. And I think when I speak to people that are, thinking about buying a new home, they often would say, look, I don't even want to consider off the plan because Opal Towers, because Mascot Towers. And I'm sure there's equivalents of those in the other major cities around Australia. So I think something like iCIRT and the gang getting together, I think this really needed to happen because the perception needed to change. Tell us a little bit about that. So we're at this point where they're trying to find a solution. How did iCIRT come about, and what are we doing now?
Yeah, well, I think it's really encouraging that there are, a number of reliable, resilient, trustworthy developers and builders out in the market. And it's great to see the way in which there has been evidence of a lift in the capability and conduct across the industry holistically. And we see that through our ratings and the ratings data. But I think we are still dealing with a legacy of the concerns that consumers have had from the past. And I think we're referencing a couple of poster childs of where it has gone wrong and has caused significant harm. And that's not a New South Wales problem. It's not even a national problem. It's not a local problem. It's a global one. And so being able to identify what are the ways that which we can introduce market mechanisms to provide improved transparency, to really empower consumers, to buyers, investors, to have access to independent recognition and credentials of those that they're engaging with when they look to buy their forever home is really important. I think that there has been, Rick, as you were sharing, unfortunately a number of bad actors, or those that have had some conflicted delivery models, those that might have had poor governance structures, and or that are distressed, and cutting corners. And there has been a pressure across industry to deliver quickly. And so as a result of whether it's design issues, workmanship, quality or oversight, there is this latent legacy of the consumer confidence erosion. And I think this is where there's a great opportunity for trustworthy, resilient, reliable, developers and builders to lead the way evidencing their independent trust credentials, reassuring consumers, buyers and investors that they've gone through that independent, rigorous review to evidence their capability, their conduct, their capacity and their commitment to standing behind trustworthy built assets.
And so what's included in the review? Because from a buyer perspective, very clear, very simple. It's a star rating. Everyone understands a star rating, right? 5 star out of 5 stars, right? We know it for movies, we know it for food, we know it for property as well now. So people can see, yep, 4 stars, that's pretty good. What is the part of this vigorous sort of process in achieving the rating?
Well, it'll be interesting to hear Rick's perspective,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
he's gone through it several times. But it is, some might suggest it's not for the faint-hearted. We're looking for evidentiary points across 150 key attributes. 150 key attributes agreed by the public and private sector working together as being important and relevant to really effectively discriminate between those that are exhibiting trustworthy behaviours versus those that are exhibiting high-risk characteristics. And so it's going through that review, looking at the business, the teams and the people that are a part of that business, the projects and the performance of those projects, past and present, and the key trading partners. There's thousands and thousands of data sources that come together with those independent evidentiary checks and balances to say, across those 6 criteria that we review as a part of iCIRT, they've been able to showcase, to demonstrate they have the capability, the capacity, the commitment to really reliably deliver.
I'll stop you there. The 6 criteria. Can we just, what are they? What are the 6 criteria?
So first is character. It's really looking at the people behind the business. This extends beyond just the formally appointed office holders. It's looking at the supervisors, who's on site, who is really able to effectively influence the operational, commercial, financial, the governance decisions, the oversight on project teams. Who are the people that are involved? So the first of the 6 is character. The second is looking at capability. Have they been able to evidence the right oversight, the governance structures, the QA programs, the teams and the people, their past projects, the performance on those projects? Have they evidenced the right capability? The third is conduct. Are they compliant? Are they doing the right things in the right way at the right times? And so that conduct piece is really important for consumers, buyers, investors to know, am I dealing with parties that are trustworthy? Then capacity. Have they got the operational resources and the financial resources to reliably deliver, to budget on time, without distressed issues otherwise compromising players cutting corners? It's looking at capital. Do they have access to the right funding lines? Heaven forbid that some of their projects are delayed, inclement weather and a whole array of issues that we saw right throughout lockdowns and COVID. So do they have the right capital? And importantly, counterparties. Who are they working with? What does that broader counterparty framework look like? Their key partners, suppliers, business partners, etc. And it's interesting because even just looking at the Grenfell disaster in the UK, there was a significant erosion of players from the market, a crisis of confidence. Consumers withdrew, buyers withdrew, investors withdrew, funders withdrew, insurers withdrew. Everyone was concerned. And Lloyd's of London, they weren't the first to come out and say, but the quality of a built asset is only as good as its weakest link. And so it's about how does one improve the transparency, the traceability, that expanded line of sight to the business and its key trading partners, that project player composition when they're bringing a built asset to market. So that's really those 6 C's are critical in terms of being able to provide that confidence, that peace of mind for buyers and investors.
On that first one that Brad mentioned, character, it goes, the process of applying for an iCIRT rating, you go through quite an exhaustive process. First time round, I think we had 13 of our leadership group and our senior management team go through this fit to work assessment, which goes through everything about you. In my case, I've developed overseas as well, so it goes through every company you've ever been a director of, whether it be national or international, and looking at the performance of whatever you did in that situation. So, and it's looking not just in the past few years. It's looking right back, and development I did in Adelaide in 2007. So all of the companies that I was involved in that situation are all gone through. So you go through, and so we started off with 13. I think we're up to about 20 of our key personnel who now go through this same assessment every year for a rating, and it goes through your police history. I'm fortunate to say that I don't have one, but there are companies that might apply that find that they pull out and don't go through the process because they have senior management or owners who have records that would not stand up to scrutiny.
So would you say if someone doesn't do it, that there's something to
Oh
hide?
no! Look, I wouldn't go that far at all. But you've got to be prepared to display your entire circumstances. And in the case of conduct, how has the company behaved, and not only how has it behaved now, but over the past couple of decades. Pleased to say that Billbergia has received the highest conduct rating in Equifax history. We haven't got the highest star rating of everybody, but in terms of conduct, we're very proud that we lead the field there, because we keep our word and we do what we say.
I want to ask on that. So, two questions is probably what's the frequency of this rating? So, is this a one-off? Is it per project? So every time they've got plans to submit a DA, or is it annual? How often are you revisiting this regulation of the developers and builders you work with?
Yeah, so really consumers are looking for those that are able to continue to evidence that they're maintaining that trustworthy proposition. And so from that perspective, trustworthy operators will continue to renew their rating at least annually. And so they'll come back and say, look, we're ready to come back. What's really encouraging for us is that when they're coming back, they're showcasing all the things that they've been working on and improving as we all aspire to better practice. And so they'll have, long lists of everything they've been strengthening in their controls, their governance structures, their project teams, how they're expanding, the things they're doing to really lift confidence in construction. It's been good to see the way in which it's having a positive, tangible impact.
I assume every time it gets a little bit easier, like it's very vigorous, but you've done it before, you know what they're looking for, you know what else you can submit. It must get easier every time.
Yeah, well, it takes out the unknowable part of it. First time round, we really don't know what they're looking for and how their assessment of our financial structure and our robustness. As a private group, we don't have to publish our results anywhere. But we had to go through and get Deloitte's to rebuild our chart of accounts so that it would align with how Equifax would like to analyse our business. So that was a big first-time effort. But it does take senior management head hours to provide and interact with the Equifax assessment thing. It's not something you leave to the down the line people to do. It has to be done at the most senior level. So it's a call on resources to do that. But yes, having done it now for the third time, we're getting better at it. It doesn't mean the questions are any easier or the hurdles are different, but we're more experienced at making the lodgements and getting them to understand where we're at.
And the ratings are for builders and developers. So
yeah, and in our case, we're an integrated business, vertically integrated from land acquisition and planning through to design, construction, and operations and sales and marketing. So we have a holistic interest in the exercise, and so Brad gets to see it all, or his team do, in going through the assessment process. So look, we're proud of our role in leading the industry and working with David Chandler and with Equifax to produce the rating system that we're now all a part of. But in my case, I've served on the board of the Urban Development Institute for the last 6 or 7 years. And we've been active as an industry body and also with the Property Council and the Urban Task Force, working with government to make sure that these rating systems are as robust and as valuable to the consumer, because it's all about evidencing your reliability and trustworthiness to the consumer, and forcing those who can't achieve that to the margins of the industry and hopefully out of the industry altogether.
The consumer, that's where I want to land right now, right? Because that's who's listening, that's who's watching, right? Who this information is for. You've done this 3 years in a row now. What are the consumer more aware now? I assume they're more aware now, but what's the uptake? Are they asking questions? Are they asking for iCIRT ratings when they walk into sales suites? Do you know what sort of information?
Well, we proudly display it on all of our literature, and as you enter the sales office, it's quite evident. And we're finding consumers who have looked at other properties, but who are looking for that badge of reassurance, and it is a third-party credential that says this developer is trustworthy, and we wouldn't have our ratings if we weren't. So it means a lot in terms of comfort. The David Chandler experiences of working hard to expose the bad guys had an unintended consequence of sort of scaring the whole industry away from off-the-plan sales. And what we really needed, if David had had more time, is to come back and focus on the success stories and balance that equation and make sure that the marginal players were just that and not badly influencing the rest of the industry.
You've hit a huge point again, because whenever something bad happens, it's on a current affair and it's all over the news and it's a headline, but we don't see the good stories, do we? And we really need to be highlighting those.
And in the media, the wording is that for every bad story, you need 10 positive stories just to break even. And so unless there's someone out there selling those 10 good stories, and there isn't at the moment, we really see a slow absorption of confidence back into the industry.
And if I'm a buyer going on, because what and just from my research, what iCIRT have done and Equifax has done a great job of showing is it's very easy to find the list of accredited developers and builders on your website, so really clear. But there, and you touched on it before, there is a distinction between obviously. There's three types, I guess you'd say. There's a developer builder, such as Billbergia. There are just developers, and then there's builders. So how, as a buyer, can I differentiate if perhaps the project has an iCIRT rated developer, but then the builder, the construction partner, isn't iCIRT rated? How would you kind of navigate that?
Well, I think it all starts with ensuring that, and what's really encouraging, coming back to an earlier question, is that consumers today are seeking greater information than ever before.
Yep.
And that's a great thing. We've got this flight to quality where consumers are hungry for independent credentials, information about all of those that are involved in a build project. And so, from our experience, we've seen that awareness continue to grow. So a couple of years ago, we were at about 23% awareness. YouGov reported last year that has grown up to about 32% awareness. Really encouraging to see that awareness grow. So we've still got more work to do. But in terms of when consumers are doing their research around whom they're engaging and who's going to be behind that project, it's important for them to be thinking about those questions. Who is the developer? Who is the builder? Who are the key counterparties that are really involved in bringing this asset to market? Again, reflecting on the comment I shared earlier from Lloyd's of London. And so there are some leading by example that are showcasing, here is the rating of my developer, here is the rating of my builder, right? We've got the whole group rated, right? There are others that are arguably being a little bit more selective. And so really, it's our employment for consumers, for buyers and investors, is to make sure that you're taking the time to do your comprehensive due diligence, looking at the past projects of what they've done. One of the important factors of their consideration is, are they on the register, and which particular entities are on the register? So whom I'm signing a contract with, are they on the register? And who's behind that group? And making sure there is that visibility. I think you were sharing earlier, I often think that sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? How do we bring about improved transparency to really help that journey of improving confidence? And Rick, you were sort of showcasing earlier a private business, typically and traditionally, hasn't really opened their books or showcased that information to an agency. Now is an opportunity for industry to say, okay, we do have complex structures. I think consumers know that there's a lot of SPVs or special purpose vehicles and really complex structures. What iCIRT does is it cuts through that and provides simplicity for consumers. Here is the overall assessment, right, for that entity. So we really do encourage them to be looking at that public-facing register, because we've also heard reports, unfortunately, that there are some out in industry that are purporting to have an iCIRT rating that don't. And equally too, to be looking at, is that rating, is it an active rating or has it been withdrawn? And if it is withdrawn, I can share with you that more than a third of those that are withdrawn are because they have not been able to maintain their trustworthy credentials.
But it's just carried on in the marketing, the logo, and yeah, right.
Yeah,
okay.
So please go and check that public-facing register. Yep. The register will say whether they're a builder, a developer, an integrated provider. And so look at exactly who you're signing that contract with, and are they on that public register.
Reminds me of my local fish and chip shop. It's like business award from 2001. And it's like, well, where have you been for the last 20 years? That's interesting. And I love that the simplicity is the key, right? Because you mentioned before the 6 pillars, 150 points of data that you're looking at, it's impossible for the individual to do that. You must have a huge team looking after iCIRT, looking after all these developer builders.
Massive databases and a lot of work, and want to give credit to industry as well that are really leaning in and embracing this. It's great to see the adoption that industry is having, and it's really a testimony to the desire for those leading by example that really do want to help turn the industry around. How do we aspire to better practice?
Yep.
And I think it was recently in a meeting with the Assistant Building Commissioner here in New South Wales that was talking about the way in which these mechanisms are really having a positive uplift in capability.
Yep.
And he shared, it's what the mature players want and it's what consumers deserve.
Yep, 100%. And I think in New South Wales has certainly taken this well, I believe. David Chandler, we mentioned him a few times, Building Commissioner in New South Wales, he really pushed it. And in my mind, I always felt like it was really iCIRT was a New South Wales thing, but it's not, right? It's a national...
That's right. Well, it was always to be Trans-Tasman, a globally facing multi-jurisdictional Trans-Tasman capability. How do we support the whole country, Australia and New Zealand in due course? How do we support that? Now, what's been interesting is that while we've got great adoption here in New South Wales, which is where we initially launched the national product, we've got a lot of adoption across other states and territories growing from early first movers, but equally a lot of interest abroad. And so we've had interest from the UK, from Europe, from different markets around the world, all looking to how can we have some portability of this capability to help in our own markets. As we shared earlier, this is not a local problem, it's a global one.
What a great Australian story too. I mean, we do lead property, right? So it makes a lot of sense.
I guess so, because obviously I guess it would be like a chicken or egg situation where we probably need to get the developers to get the accreditation, to get iCIRT rated, and then really start to push this message to consumers, which sounds like, I mean, from my perspective, from a business to business perspective, you just see more and more of the big players who are here for a long time. They're iCIRT rated now, which is fantastic, certainly in New South Wales, and I'm sure you're going to then replicate the same in the other states. What's on the horizon from a consumer outreach perspective or brand awareness perspective to really make sure more and more people get understanding of this and to help lift the off-the-plan industry, which again is, as you're saying, is the ultimate goal of this? Yeah.
Well, it's really about partnering. It's partnering with government. And so we're doing some work there at the moment around how do we ensure we've got some joint communications that really help lift that consumer awareness. It's also partnering with industry.
Yep.
Industry associations and those that are leading by example in terms of building that awareness. There are home buyer guides, there's information packs that really help inform and communicate to consumers, to buyers, what does an iCIRT rating mean and how does this actually provide improved peace of mind. But also with important providers, information providers to the market, such as yourselves, you know. And so there's a lot of work that we are doing at the moment to really help continue that positive trajectory of growing consumer awareness. And the reason that it's so important is because of the tangible concrete impact it's having. So again, a study from YouGov last year revealed that for those that were iCIRT aware across the market, 69% reported improved confidence in construction. In this environment, that's a big number. Versus, for those that were not aware of the independent ratings, iCIRT, only 7% reported improved confidence in construction. 7% to 69%. So it's having a quantifiable, concrete impact and really helping lift confidence for consumers. And in this environment, where we know that nearly half of all adult Australians have got property intentions in the next 5 years to buy, build or renovate, we know that unfortunately at the moment, because of that legacy problem of the past where there's been those concerns, only a third have the confidence to move forward. That's a big confidence gap. And so it's great to see the way in which industry is embracing these mechanisms to really help support that improved confidence proposition for consumers.
Yeah, great. Rick, from an industry perspective, what are you looking for in the future from iCIRT and things like that?
Well, I think we want more widespread adoption of iCIRT as the principal benchmark, and we want the government to encourage from a home buyer point of view that look for the quality before you make your decisions. And looking for that quality means to look not just for the developer, but for the builder and the team, because all of these major projects are delivered by quite large teams of architects and engineers and subcontractors. And the iCIRT assessment process really looks at all of that as well as funding sources and adequacy of capital. But the new building commissioner, James Sherrard, has now got his feet under the desk and is getting well and truly into things. And Matt Press, who was the long-term deputy to David Chandler, and now with James. There's continuity there in the building commission. They've expanded their resources, and they're able to issue speeding tickets to the poorer performers in the industry. But equally, they need to be out there recognising and applauding excellence. And we use the awards process for industry across the board to try and reinforce that message, because it's the industry assessing its delivery partners. And pleased to say that Billbergia has been fortunately recognised quite handsomely with its projects over the last decade from UDIA and UDIA National Property Council, Urban Task Force, and the Master Builders. I mean, we have Development Project of the Year for our master plan town centres, both in Rhodes and at Wentworth Point, and they're the highest pinnacle in those industries. But in August last year, we were awarded Master Builder of the Year nationally. So we not only develop, and we only build for ourselves. We build 1,000 or 1,500 apartments a year, so it's a very major book. But being recognised nationally as Master Builder of the Year was quite an achievement as well.
And driving that forward as well, because I mean, there's a lot coming up for Billbergia also in some pretty key areas. Chatswood is an example of one. So I guess that's just going to be so important for you to keep driving that, keep that iCIRT, make sure, as you were saying, doing from the vendor or the developer builder perspective, making sure that consumers are more and more aware of this, that they need to do their checks. Like, I love what you said before in terms of then actually making sure to go on the website to verify almost. Yeah. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and it's great to see that with so much coming, and probably, as you said, maybe a bit of a purge in industry where those are the term you use, the rump. It's probably a necessary plight to make sure that only the best quality construction and projects are coming through to really get those numbers up, to get that consumer sentiment, I guess you'd say, to want to go more into off the plan.
And Chatswood's a good example because it's the North Shore. We haven't previously developed in the North Shore, so we're an unknown name and unknown commodity going into that community. We have other interests in that area as well at St Leonard's and other places, so we'll be developing there more in future. But going in with Chatswood, it's our first project into that market, so our brand recognition isn't as high there as it would be, and carrying in the multiple gold stars from iCIRT proudly on the wall and on the literature is a comfort for prospective buyers there.
I love that. This has been a fascinating chat, gentlemen. We probably could have gone for another hour or so, I think, but we're landing on time there. So let's end it with, again, this is for the consumers. I'll start with you, Rick. What should a consumer be looking for when it comes to this sort of quality trust? What's the first thing they should ask when they're looking into a property?
Well, firstly, what credentials do you have and your team? Because it's not, as I said before, not just the developer, it's the developer and the builder and the rest of the major team members. And what's your recognition by your own industry? Where are they rating you? And so we proudly display all of that on our literature as well. But yes, and look at their last 5 projects, and don't just look at this year. Look over the last 5 or 10 years, and what's their real track record.
I like that you guys stick to areas as well. You're not running away from a neighbourhood. You're building a neighbourhood. I love that. Brad, same question.
Pretty simple. As a part of doing their due diligence, check if they're iCIRT rated. Yep. Go to the iCIRT register, iCIRT.com, and verify that they actually have earned their independent trust credentials.
Yep. I would add to that, after you've checked their iCIRT rated, ask if Coposit is available. Tom, same question.
I couldn't possibly add more value to what you both said. And look, the good thing is it's happening. I was talking to a developer in Castle Hill who said, I think it was between 6 or 7 out of 10 of their buyers are now saying it's between iCIRT and latent defect insurance. It's almost they just come in looking for that straight away. So I think it's great. I think it's great what both of you are doing, and I think it's great for industry in general.
And just on that, I think it's the benefit of these market mechanisms collaboratively really having a positive impact across the market. So it's great to see the way in which the government has facilitated and supported the introduction of these mechanisms, but it's also great to see the way in which industry has really readily embraced these mechanisms as a part of restoring trust and confidence.
I love it. Thanks for your time, gentlemen. I feel like we'll be having more conversations like this. So thank you for joining us on Property Now. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
This is Jason He, the sexiest voice in property, here to tell you that the Property Now podcast offers opinions on Australian property news for informational and entertainment purposes only, and general in nature. It does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. It does not constitute professional advice. Always seek expert guidance before making any property-related decisions.